Well, it has been a couple weeks, and I bet you're very surprised. Wow, Sariel actually is having another video come out, and it is not months apart. Wow, that is a surprise. Well, I agree with you there, but I did promise I would make the pest control with Sariel video, so that is exactly what I'm going to do. Now, I am going to lead you guys down on a pathway of enlightenment with me. You guys are going to go on a journey with me. Not just with this video series, but with future upcoming videos. And during these 5 videos that you're going to see for this first part, I'm going to take you guys with me on the 5 stages of grief. And you may be wondering, why would you be on the 5 stages of grief? Well, it is because of this community. These people I'm looking at, they are just low lives. They are pedophiles. Well, only one of them is in my series, but they are just scum. They are dumb. They are useless. And they are liars. These people, they do anything to validate themselves, to make themselves feel right, to put themselves in a moral area so they can be just like everyone else. Well, you guys are not just like everyone else. Sure, you may have every other human like feature of a mouth, a nose, an eye, everything else, but you are not anything like me. And I don't want you to be like me. And these people, each one has an issue. One of them is a liar and tries their hardest to put something down at the lowest and to make up anything just to prove their point. It truly is a desperate moment for them. Have you guys ever seen where how mice, if they're stuck and they can't get out, like if they get stuck on a mousetrap, they will sometimes tear off their own limbs just to get out of it. They will cannibalize themselves. This is what he is. And then there's a second person, a person who is a pedophile. He decides to justify the most disgusting things ever on YouTube, and there's people that egg him on and think it's funny in some way to make jokes about sexualizing children. Yes, you hear me right. Third person, which is more of a few people in one video, but who lied about every single point they make and then try to pretend to be knowledgeable. Very similar to part one that I just mentioned. It's quite interesting how all these people are the same in a way. And number 4 is a person who deleted their YouTube channel because their mommy told them to. And I'm going to get to that one. I think you guys know who I'm talking about there. And number 5, that's going to be a surprise for you, but you'll hear that one. But really, let's get on to part 1. Now, the name of this person, his name is Dante the Snake. Quite a fitting name, if you ask me. A snake. I think it's perfect because he's a liar, just like the ones in the stories. And you may be wondering, why would I call him a liar? Well, you guys may know him for being the judge of a certain debate that happened months ago that was divided on what happened, who won. But then 3 months ago, it came out that the verdict, he disagreed with it, that he judged on, and that it was ass. The reason why and where that screenshot came from, it all started because of I was in the YouTube comments of Drip God. I was reading them because I get sent the Nasuverse ones every time it was made by people to say, hey, look at this idiot. He wrote that post that you forced him to write, and he's still making it out of desperation to please the people so then they can make him feel wanted because he wasn't a wanted person. And so I kept on noticing, and every single one, he would be in the comments saying, Nasuverse is 2D. Now, you might be thinking, 2D? How's that possible? Well, he is using a weird screenshot, but I'll get to that. And he kept on saying it, and it's like this guy seems to be real desperate for attention. And Drip God, of course, was clicking love on the things. Like it's just all he always clicks love on them. It's an unusual thing. I don't click love on stuff that I on everything. I don't know. It's just a strange thing. And he he like oh man, I'm struggling to talk about it because it's such a dumb situation. He he then said that he debated a PSW goon and he slammed them. And he listed the person's name. And so I was like, you know what? That's a very interesting thing. I want to talk to this person. Let's see the slamming. Let's see what happened. And so, as you can see on the screen of the DMs, this quote unquote slamming was a nothing burger. There was no slamming at all. It was barely even he never got ahead in it at all. It was just a straight up lie out of desperation. And so you can see here every single thing he says is just straight up. You can see he's lost. He has no idea what he's bringing up at all during the whole entire topic. And he's like, one of the things he said is Mooncell is 2D due to virtual feats that scale nowhere. Well, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about with the Mooncell, so I don't know how you can talk about it. And second of all, this is not slamming. If this is slamming, then I've curb stomped every single person I've ever had a conversation with ever. And so I tried adding the dude, and there was no response at all. And that was annoying because I don't like being ghosted. So I noticed again, he made a comment on Drip God's post again out of desperation. Nasuverse is 2D. Now, this was the 8th time he said the same thing again. And so I looked in the replies because there were replies. And it said, one of them was Drip God. He disagreed with him. That's just quite an interesting thing. The biggest Nasuverse downplayer of the community that always did his best to downplay it disagreed with him, which is pretty insane. And so I just thought about it. I was like, alright, nobody likes this dude at all, clearly, because he's in these comments all the time typing that, and no one agrees with him. So I looked and I was like watching videos and I saw Cap Edits had a Discord server and I joined it And then when I went back to Dante's account after joining that server, I realized we now have mutual servers. And so right away, DM'd him. And I was like, sent the screenshots where he was talking his shit. And I was like, let's run this in a voice chat debate. And I know he can do voice chat because he did live streams with a face cam on playing weird Magic the Gathering. And so I saw from multiple people that he was typing inside of his server while I was DMing him. And so I was like, this guy is ignoring me. And so I kept on replying to him every 24 hours. And so I then went on to multiple times per day. And finally, after 3 days, he answered. And you can guess how he answered. Like, these people that are goons and never have any backing, they always have the same response because they can't debate to save their lives. Keep rage, kid. Nasu versus fodder. Also, I don't debate anymore. Cope with the fact your favorite verse skills nowhere and is an MTG plant token victim. Now, you might be wondering, what the fuck is MTG? MTG is Magic the Gathering. It is the thing that you constantly see in the memes, like in South Park, where it's the fat, obese people playing it. And they're like, wow, actually, you know that shit? That's what that's what it is. Not every one of them is like that, but you take a look at him on his live streams and you're like, okay, yeah, it is. And so I was like, nice duck. You didn't back up, you can't back up shit and don't debate because you're ass. All that yap and you can't even back it up. And it's interesting. Even a person that was close friends with Drip God and was anti-Nasuverse, I would say, for quite a bit, disagreed with him and even said that he was ass. And what did this guy do, Dante? He sends his private server link and then says run it with his friend. And I was like, ducking is crazy. And I said, do it in a neutral server instead of a bummy one where you're owner. And he was like, you can run it with one of my subscribers. And I thought about it and I was like, that's kind of crazy. He can't even like call that person his friend. He just called it a subscriber. And then they're like, they can debunk Nasuverse below infinite simul level. Simal. He didn't type a real word. And I was like, you're a cornball. You talk trash, yet cry for a sub to save you. And here's the kicker. Disagree with my takes equals cope. And then proceeds to, like, not use a capitalized I. That is first grade English. Wow, this is really looking good. So he kept on saying all these people debunked Nasuverse to hypo. Well, whatever. You keep on changing it, so you can't even keep like consistency. And so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I am gonna go in there with people. So I went and I invited that guy who was the PSW goon, and it didn't go how I expected, for a good reason actually. Now, what happened was that at first the people that we were gonna run it with were inactive, and soon people started joining, and I noticed, whoa, this is a lot of people because he sent the invite to a server, and then those people sent the invite somewhere else, and you can kind of see what happened. It became a mess, and the server was getting spammed. It was just like, oh my god, this is a mess. And the brother didn't even talk in his own server for a week. This went on for a week, and finally, days later, these guys showed up, and the first thing they do is threaten to dox people because they disagree with the 2D take. And it's like, what an insane thing to do. Because you think a verse is high that they disagree with, so they're gonna dox you for it. And they threatened to do it, and it was like it was just a crazy situation. But they got curb stomped by everyone there because a lot of people there did not give a shit, and there's some other people that could do the same thing. So it was kind of like a gang gunfight. It just bop bop, and so that went terribly wrong. And the whole time, this guy Dante was in my DMs, which is freaking crazy. He refused to talk in his own server. He didn't ban the people that were spamming him, which is just. I couldn't believe it. It was like, what was your plan? Why are you so dumb? Why would you even think this was a good idea? And so it just it was something, and it went on, and then finally it was ended, and like everyone was kicked out of there. And then I was like, I didn't invite those people, all of them, just only a little bit. And I was like, my bad. And I was like, all right, you should probably clear it, restart the general chat. And I was like, I said, add me back, and he said no, and he refused to add me, which is very strange. And then I said, just discuss it then. It's not a debate. And he refused to do it. And I was like, all right, first of all, your friends lost the debate. One refused to do it, and the other one made excuses and threatened to dox. And they had no evidence to debunk it, the verse, too. It was just all, trust me, bro. Seem familiar? And I didn't. His claim was, I didn't know he doxed someone. I thought he was just a loyal fan, which was crazy. You're calling your friends just fans? And I was like, do you condemn their actions? And he said, yeah. So he condemned his friend. And what does he do? He times him out. What a weird thing. And he said they sucked. And then I started discussing. I was like, why are you saying that everything in Fate is not canon? And he said he just talked about Nasu Debater. No one passes tier 4. And it's like, who gives a fuck about tiers, man? And I said tiers are biased because it's other people deciding the tiers. There's no one to officially do the tiers. It's stupid. And so I tried explaining the world a little bit, and I was like, everything is canon. So stop that stupid shit. And then he's like bringing up Dragon Ball, like how it. And then I was like, okay, whatever. I don't give a shit about Dragon Ball. And then I was trying to explain the Earth's textures, and then he's like, and the feats are virtual. What is with this dude in virtual? Now, he was getting this virtual thing from a guy called Power Level Scaling, Cosmic Eyes, and this other guy, two guys that were unknowns. And I asked myself the magical question: Who at have they? Do any of them like them? The Nasuverse? None of them. And I was like, have any of them read it? And only one guy, Shaggy, the doxer. And I was like, you're telling me that these guys didn't fucking read it, yet they're gonna do debunks. How does that work? And I realized right there, this guy is a fucking idiot. So I dropped it. I ended the conversation and I was like, alright, I just ended it and it was done. And I was like, hey, all right, it's not going to be happening for a long time, anything else. Nope. Just this week, he's back again in a server trying to debate it again. And this time I was shown it and I decided to jump in. Had the conversation with the dude, and this time he has the same debunk as before, but I then asked him the magical question. I was like, did you read it? Any of the story? And he claimed yes. And so I was like, huh, interesting. And I decided to ask him a question. Only a reader would know. And for your information, it's like asking, who is Luke Skywalker's father in Star Wars? If you read the story, you would know. I asked, what place, what part of the story is Mexico City in, and who's the strongest character in that part of the story? He had no answer. He couldn't answer it at all. It was crazy. He said he read the content and he couldn't read it. So then he avoided it and then decided to answer other people on Doctor Who and Dragon Ball Z stuff. So it showed that he was ducking and couldn't answer it, and he was being disingenuous because he couldn't do anything else. And then I decided again to try another question because he said he was willing to answer a question about it. And I asked him again, did you read it? And he once again said yes. And I was like, who's the first grand servant to appear in the story? Now, there's technically two answers, and he couldn't answer that one either. And the really bad part about this is, too, he could have seen the anime version, which has a little bit of the story, but it did show this at least, and he couldn't answer at all. This was just showed that he was desperate to do it at any cost. He was willing to lie. He couldn't even go to Type Moon Wiki to get it. And to further add insult to injury, he used a scan and said this debunks all of Nasuverse, and it proved that everything is 2D and everything is inside a computer made by humans of Nasuverse. And so he showed a scan, and the issue was, first of all, it was not a real scan. Second of all, it had nothing to do with anything he said there. Third of all, I asked him, where's the scan from? Now, I obviously knew it was from a Fate Extra game, but I was curious. What would he say? And he said it was from Fate Apocrypha. It was so wrong, that answer, that he then stated afterwards, when I called him out on it, oh, it's not canon. Never mind. Are you fucking kidding me? And so I trashed him and I had to crash out. My bad. Well, not my bad to him, but my bad to anybody that had to see it. I am a good person. Do not judge me on that. I just have my rough moments. And so he also was going to drop a debunk that day, a whole other thing with a whole bunch of other stuff, 8 minutes worth of stuff. And then he says, out of nowhere, I have a Magic the Gathering thing that's going to last from Friday to Monday. And it was like, really? This came out of nowhere. He didn't say anything about it, and he changed it, and he said, oh, it's going to come Tuesday. So there goes that. So we're going to see Tuesday. But part one of my 5 stages of grief are over. And in this next part, you guys are going to hear about a freaking terrible pedophile on the platform of YouTube. Thank you for watching, and make sure to support me on my journey.